Hello and welcome to this quick playthrough of Burrowdale. My name's Ian, I'm going to be playing solo today, but I'm aiming to give you a good idea of how a multiplayer game works at the same time. So this is Burrowdale. It's a trading and route building game involving bunnies. That's rabbits for those of you that are not from the UK. So the setup looks like this. I've dealt out in advance 12 of these Warren cards, and these are different types of routes that are going to make tunnels. Around the outside are 14 burrows, and in each of these, because it's a solo game, I've placed randomly one of the resource tokens that are available. If you're playing a multiplayer game, you'd set up the Warrens in exactly the same way, but there wouldn't be any of these tokens around the outside. They'll be placed by players as you go through. Now, I'm playing against an evil green bunny opponent who is going to be moving down the score line and also messing with the routes turn by turn. In this game, I'm playing a shortened version, so I'm going to try and get to 40 points before my bunny opponent does. But actually, normally in solo, you play 120, first to 120 points. In a multiplayer game, you'll play first to 40, and it's the first one to get there is the winner. Now, you're trying to store as much food as you can for your bunny family for the winter. So on my turn, I've got 3 actions available to me. I can either take one of the available free resources from the stack and place them into one of these burrows around the outside. Each burrow can hold 2 resources at any given time. I can also use one of my 3 Warren cards that are in my hand and use that to actually change the layout of the burrows by placing this wherever I want it to be. And I'll take away the one that was underneath. I've also got a family emblem which represents my rabbit family, and I can put this on any of these tiles as one of my actions, and that will give me a bonus point when I complete routes. Now, the key to the game, though, is the action whereby you actually store food for the winter. So what I'm aiming to do is that when a tunnel is formed, if I can have one of my rabbit at each end of a tunnel, and I can also have a matching resource at each end of the tunnel, so it might be 2 lettuces, it might be 2 radishes, or something else, then I will score points based on how many cards that route passes through. So if I'm going from here to here, I would score 3 points if they were matching resources at either end. Now, obviously, you can build more complex routes to get any number of points by going around, but you'll only score for the shortest available route between those 2 points. You'll see that some of these cards have got bonus resources on them. This one's got a carrot on it. So what that means is if you're able to build a route between 2 carrots that also passes through that, well, that's worth an extra bonus point, just as your family emblem would be if you put it along the route as well. I think that is all of the actions, so I'm going to start making a move. So what I can do here, at the start of the turn, my terrible bunny opponent is going to be replacing one of these cards. Now, for the basic game, these will be replaced in sequence, one at a time. So the first round will be here, the second round here, third round here, and so forth, which allows you to do a little bit of the planning because you know what your opponent is largely going to do. You're also going to move your opponent on 5 points each round before you get started. Now, actually, if you want a bit more randomness in the game, if you want a bit more jeopardy in there, you can determine which card is going to be replaced by your bunny opponent by rolling a d12, or even 2 d12s if you're feeling really daring. That particular variant comes from the wonderful Berry board games. So if you want something with a little bit more stress to it, then that is the way to do that. Again, that's just for the solo game. So as it's my first turn, my priority to start with is going to be to place my bunnies at some suitable locations. I've got 3 bunnies to play with, and the 4th one is going to be used for scoring. And yes, I know they're not bunnies, they're meeples, but keep watching the Kickstarter campaign to find out how that might just get better. So I think at this point, the routes are not very favourable, and I've not got people where they need to be, but there is a nice crossroads up here. So I'm going to start by, my first action is going to be to place a bunny there. My second action, I'm actually going to place one at the far end, thinking of the future, and I'm going to use my third action to go, I think, up here. So that's my 3 actions done. I obviously haven't scored any points in that round. Usually your first couple of rounds are going to be about pre-positioning and just setting the Warrens up to give you a better chance later on. So the second round begins. My terrible bunny opponent is going to replace a card. Actually, you get to choose which orientation you place this, whether it's that way or that way. It has to be landscape. I think actually that's going to be more favourable comfortable for me to do that. I move the green bunny on 5 more points, so he's now got 10. So what can I do? I can see from the available resources, actually you can't quite see that, let me just tilt that up slightly. You can see from the available resources there is there's some hay and a blackberry available on the resource stack. They're the 2 resources visible at any given time. So I think what I'm going to try and do, I need to start making some matches between them. So let's get a berry into that burrow. I'll replace this one and see what comes off the top. It looks like, oops, fat fingers, there we go. That is a radish. I definitely want a radish, so I'm also going to pick that up and place that at this far end by that bunny there. And replace that on the stack. And then I think for my third action, I need to start getting some of these routes to work out for me. So I think what I'll do is replace this awful blank tile with one with a nice straight. So you can see I'm starting to build a route that's going to go along here and hopefully score me loads of points very soon. I'll top up, because I've used one of my hand cards, I'll top that up from the deck. And that's my 3 actions done. So we move on to round 3. Obviously, in a multiplayer game, you're all changing the routes. You're all adding resources to the burrows at different times. So it's a lot more dynamic. And as with a lot of games, it's up to you exactly how horrible you want to be to your opponents and exactly how much time you want to spend spoiling other people's stuff versus building your own. It's definitely not intended to be a cooperative game, but you will find places where you and your opponents can share part or all of a route and get mutual benefit from it. You can actually initiate trades with each other as well if you're sharing a route between you, and you can share the points by doing that. But really, sharing, who wants to do that? Come on, this is about competition, isn't it? So I'm going to move on to round 3. The green bunny has moved forward 15 points. They now have. They are switching this card rather, because it's the 3rd one. And right, it's now time for me to start getting something here that's going to get me some points. So what I'm going to do is my first action, I'm going to swap this over and put that one in there. Now, I now have the opportunity to complete a route. I've also got a bunny at either end and I've got a radish at either end. So that means for my second action, I can score that, and I'm going to score it, as I said, by counting the number of cards that my route goes along, which in this case is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When I complete a store action, which is what that's called, I have to get rid of one of the resources that I've used. So that's going to score me 6 points, but I have to decide which of these 2 radishes I want to get rid of. So I think I'm going to get rid of that one. I've moved on to 6 points and I've still got one more action left. So I think my priority now is to make sure that I can get some more resources going. So I'm going to place this hay resource back where the radish was. Get a new resource on the stack from there. And that's the end of that round. So the 4th round, my opponent moves on 5 points again onto 20, and they now replace the 4th card in the grid. That looks fairly innocuous, so let's put that one like that. So how are we going to do this? I think it makes sense for me to place some hay down here. Oh, I can't do that, of course. I can't place hay because that's already got 2 resources on it. And you can only have a maximum of 2 at each time. So I think what I'm going to do is take advantage of the fact that there's already some hay over here. I'm going to move this bunny over to there, and then I'm going to complete that trade, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's actually 7 because it passes through this bonus hay icon. And I think because I've still got one action left, I'm going to chuck a bonus token, that's my family emblem, on there to take it up to 8. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points for that trade. Let's get rid of that hay token because I've made the trade. Move myself on 8 points, so I'm now on 14. I top up the cards in my hand, so I've now got these 3 to choose from. And that is the end of the 4th round. So it's a little bit later in the game now. A number of rounds have passed and I'm finding myself under a bit of pressure here. I am 8 points behind my artificial opponent. But things are set up quite nicely. So I've positioned these lettuces in previous rounds. I just need to find a way of getting that trade to them. So what I'm going to do for my 3 actions this time, I'm going to move my bunny over here, first of all. And as you can see, that gives me the potential for a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 point trade. But I wonder if I can actually make that better. If I look at the cards in my hand, I've got these 2 ones that are just kind of blockers really. But I do have this. So if I take this card away and replace it with this one, then that's creating a much longer route, which is obviously therefore going to get me more points. It also has a bonus lettuce icon on it, which means that instead of getting those 6, I'm now getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, plus the bonus point for that lettuce. So that's actually an 11 point trade, and that's going to lead me all the way through up to 38 points and moves me ahead of my opponent. So I think the point there is that this isn't just about sitting on a short route and just trying to bank points and bank points. There's a lot to be said for investing in your route, I suppose, trying to build something that's really going to get you a much better return later in the game, and particularly when you're playing against other players. This is really important, just to try and see what's the best route that you can get that can go all the way around the board and hopefully give you that edge over the other bunny families. When you're playing solo, of course, there are only 25 of these resources. So there's 5 of each kind: carrots, berries, radishes, hay, and lettuces. And because every time you trade a pair, every time you store a pair, you take one of those resources away, it means there's a total of 20 trades that you can make altogether in a solo game. So clearly in a full solo game, you're trying to get to 120 points. You want to be trying to score an average of 5 points per round and 5 points per store action. So you have to bear that in mind, that when you're setting up, you're going to need to make up that ground later in the game. So this is now the final round of the game. As before, it's round 8, so it's card 8 is going to be replaced by my opponent, and annoyingly they've completely blocked that tunnel that I was using a few moments ago. They move on to 40 points, so I've got to try and score more than 2 points, or 2 or more points, with my final 3 actions. So it looks like, because of the resources, that long tunnel I was using is probably not going to work. Actually, there's a couple of things I can do here. I could either move my bunny across to there and take the hay that's already on offer. I could also try and optimize these routes again. So I can rebuild this route for 1. I can take the berry that's on offer for 2, and then I can trade. Here I've got bunny, bunny, berry, berry, 1, 2, 3, 4 points there. So I've got a couple of options, which is going to give me the points I need to move ahead of my bunny opponent to a last gasp victory. That's basically how it works. That's Burrowdale. Any questions, as ever, please get in touch on the Board Game Geek forums or on the Kickstarter campaign. Thanks very much for watching.